Today, we are off to do 3 nights of island backcountry primitive camping in the Mosquito Lagoon at site number 1 of Canaveral National Seashore. There are 14 of these natural island and spoil island campsites throughout the Intercoastal Waterway and Lagoon, only accessible by watercraft. Kayaks will be our mode of transportation to the island, so making the 1-mile paddle can be quite an undertaking when loaded down with gear and 4 to 5 days of provisions. But unlike us, I recommend getting an early start to give yourself plenty of time to navigate and reach your campsite before dusk. But either way, we found it without too much trouble, and we're pleased to discover such an accessible landing and launching shoreline. The campsite is perfect with plenty of space and comes with a fire pit and picnic table. And after a long day, it was nice to finally wind down and reminisce.
Well, here we are. We made it to the Cape Canaveral
Orange
National
Island.
Seashore Orange Island site number 1. And it took a lot to get here.
Yeah. Not true.
True.
Yeah, it was a little bit further paddle than what I expected, and we were loaded down.
We're loaded down, and we kind of got a late start.
We got a very late start. We didn't probably take off till about 6:30. And slow paddling, I mean, I was pulling Tanner and it was like pulling a sled.
I had Case.
And then we made the mistake of trying to take a shortcut across grass flats and oyster beds, and it didn't work out well. So we ended up actually going a lot further than
we thought.
It wasn't a shortcut at all.
It wasn't a shortcut.
No.
But we found it in the nick of time. Put our new tent up in the dark.
In the dark.
In the dark.
But it wasn't so. It went up pretty good.
Yeah, it was good for our first time. Got the hammock up in the dark. Pretty much did everything in the dark. So it'll be great to wake up in the morning, have some coffee, and just see our surroundings.
Yep. Do a little exploring.
But it's beautiful here, and I can tell that much. Hi, you scared me, Case. Case is with us. Come here,
Casey.
come on. He's been chasing raccoons and getting in the water. Ew.
Yeah, I don't know what he's going to do with one if he catches it. That raccoon will wreck him. But we've got a beautiful full moon.
Rocket launch tonight.
We've got yep. SpaceX Falcon is going to take off at 12:30 a.m. So we're excited about that.
We can stay up for it.
We're going to stay up for that, and then get up in the morning. Maybe do a little fishing. Maybe we're going to put out a crab trap. Maybe go try to find some oysters, and maybe even tomorrow night. Maybe throw the cast net a little bit. See if we can't catch some shrimp. But we'll see.
But we got a fun 3 days ahead of us. So we're really excited. And it's Easter weekend, so it's just a great time to be together.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it's all about.
Yep.
All right.
We'll keep watching. More to come.
Yep. See you in the morning.
Before sunrise, we were greeted by a herd of manatees just offshore directly in front of the campsite. And after enjoying watching these animals forage in their natural habitat, Kim took Case out for a quick sunrise spin. And then it was Tanner's turn to spend a little time on the water during this magical time of day while following FWC guidelines to observe the manatees from a distance to avoid disturbing them. Make sure to watch day 3 of the adventure when I give more thoughts on manatees. So after all that morning excitement, it was definitely coffee time. And after a quick visit from a curious manatee, we baited and deployed a blue crab trap just offshore of camp in hopes of adding them to the weekend menu. The afternoon hours were spent just enjoying the cool waters of the lagoon and the excellent shade provided by the campsite. And we were even reminded of the pre-Columbian use of these islands by American Indians, with scattered fragments of ancient clay pottery still present on the shoreline. Then it was time to rig up, net some finger mullet for bait, then put these guys out on the bottom. And then to just sit back and enjoy the freedom of fishing with the rhythm of the shoreline lapping at our feet.
Keep fighting him, keep fighting him. Let him go, let him go, let him go, let him go. Go out in the water if you have to. There you go. If he wants to run, let him go. Man, it's a huge sail cat. All right, let's get him to the shore. No more reeling. Let's pull him up on the shore. Big old sail cat.
Wow.
Man, I was hoping that was a redfish.
Wow, Tanner.
Look at that. No, that is a good sail cat right there.
Nice. There you go.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you. Good job.
Good job, buddy.
After catching several more catfish, we decided to call it a day. And there is no better way to end the day than around a campfire, reliving the day's events and looking forward to the promise of what tomorrow might bring. And that promise came in the form of a boat, captained by our good friends Alex and Meg, to spend the day on the water fishing. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment to address my opinion of the current abysmal state of the Mosquito Lagoon fishery. But first, the good. And that is most of the lagoon is buffered by the Canaveral National Seashore and Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge. This is critical to maintaining its natural condition and preserving countless species of fish and wildlife. So simply put, this place is a treasure. Now, that being said, I see a major failure to maintain its natural condition. What was once a Garden of Eden is now an ecological disaster that I say rivals any in the country. And there are many reasons for its slow death, such as septic tank leakage, stormwater runoff, and fertilizer leaching. But there's also a couple less familiar reasons, the latter of which is highly contentious. The first is that the lagoon used to be a clam heaven, but due to overharvesting and the reasons just mentioned, the clam population collapsed over 30 years ago. And what does a clam do? Well, it filters about 4.5 gallons of water a day, so multiply that times millions of clams. The other reason? Manatees, also known as a sea cow. Now here's a little analogy. What does a competent cattle rancher do? They rotate their cattle from pasture to pasture to avoid overgrazing. You ever heard of warm water refuges? Well, historically, for millions of years, the Florida manatee could be found along the Gulf Coast as far west as Texas and up the Atlantic coast to the Carolinas, but would always migrate to South Florida to warmer water during the winter months. But because of warm water refuge created from the outflows of Florida Power and Light's Cape Canaveral power plant, we have now created resident manatees that don't leave, which means the Mosquito Lagoon pasture of seagrass is never taken out of rotation. And because of that, it has been eviscerated and replaced with the seafloor of mud, which has replaced healthy game fish with catfish and shorts. With no grass, you have no habitat for the fishery to thrive. And one more thing. Because the population here is above carrying capacity, FWC conducts supplemental feeding at the power plant with heads of lettuce during the winter months so they don't starve to death, which I can't help but point out this violates the state's own manatee guidelines that says offering food or water to manatees is prohibited because it alters their foraging behavior and is considered a form of harassment. There's an old proverb that says the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Artificial warm water refuges do more incalculable harm to manatees and their habitat than help, but God forbid if I inadvertently get too close and disturb a manatee. I could be punished under state law with a $500 fine or 60 days imprisonment. It's just hypocrisy. Okay, done talking about manatees. Back to fishing and our best catch of the day.
Ooh, Tanner got him. That was a buried cork. God almighty. That's a better fish. Oh, oh wow.
On the boat, on the boat.
Tanner, bring him to your mom.
There you go.
Oh my God. That's a better fish.
She's 9.5.
Just short.
After receiving a thorough beatdown in fishing, we tapped and headed north to the oyster beds. Thankfully, oysters are still available here if you know where to look. They are fun and easy to harvest, and after picking up about 3 dozen, it was time to head back to camp. The first order of business was to check our trap in the hopes we'd have blue crab to go along with our oysters that night, but no luck. Then we were off to do a little exploring of our island where you never know what you're going to see. Capped off with a little fishing before returning to camp to prepare the oysters.
Fresh oysters.
Right out of Canaveral National Seashore.
Yep. Harvested them today.
Yep, we got a little Ed's Red, which is the greatest hot sauce in my opinion for oysters, and a little bit Tabasco as well. All right, y'all ready?
Ready.
Here, Tanner. That's a good little one there.
Awesome.
And for you.
Thank you.
Man, this is so
Cheers.
good.
Cheers.
Oh, cheers.
Cheers.
Mmm.
Dad, those are so good.
Oh my God. That is good. Let's cook up some more.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
It's a good thing that Jesus has risen today, because we are really going to need him in our boat.
Yeah, what are we looking at? What's our weather?
We're looking at a wind advisory that starts at 10 o'clock. It's now 8 o'clock. And we're talking 20 to 30 mile an hour winds out of the north, and up to 40 mile an hour winds expected, which is 5 less than tropical storm strength. And a north wind is coming right out of the direction where we're trying to go. Starting later today at 4 o'clock, there's a high surf advisory and coastal flood warning at 4 p.m. This paddle back against the wind and the tide is going to be maybe the most brutal thing we've ever done.
Dangerous.
If we can make it to the shoreline, that eastern shoreline,
If we can
make it, then I think we're home free. But it's just getting across this mega chop.
Yep, we're gonna do a Mission Impossible.
But we're about to go get some type 2 fun. Big time.
Yep.
Come on. Turn. We can't make it. We literally, I was paddling as hard as I could go. I looked over at Kimberly. She was paddling as hard as she could go. We weren't even moving. I would have full rudder engaged and paddling, and I still could barely turn the boat. I mean, there was no possible way we were going to make it. So we had to turn about. So we're heading back to camp. We're going to call the ranger station and see if we can't call in a mayday. See if they can egress us out of here. If not, we might be pinned down here for another day or two. Unbelievable wind and current. Well, we tried to set the market, but we had to pull an Andrea Gale and turn about. Once we got about 500 yards offshore, and I thought it was maybe, but then once we got close to the main river, there was no way.
No.
I looked over at Kim, and you were paddling, I mean, as hard as you could go, and you weren't going anywhere.
And I was hoping to at least get to the point where the mangroves were, so I know it's shallow there. I thought, well, at least if I could get there, then maybe I could walk my kayak.
Yeah, drag it.
Just drag it across and walk the shallows to the ramp.
Yeah.
But we couldn't even get there.
No. And I was just trying to get your attention. When I finally realized it was a hopeless situation, I was just waiting for you to look over at me. And as soon as you did, I hailed you.
Yeah,
and
I saw
said,
you, like...
I said, back. Turn about.
I had a hard time turning around. Because I didn't want to like be sideways to the waves and then tip over. But so we put a call into the Park Service, and we're just waiting to hear from them whether they can send a boat for us or we'll just wait it out and maybe not be able to leave until tomorrow.
But it was an interesting call because apparently the Park Service is maybe a little insufficient when it comes to search and rescue since their boat is broken.
Yeah.
They don't even have LE on staff at the moment. So they told us just to stand by. LE was coming in at some point today, which they were unable to tell us when.
We're a little damp and cold because the temperature dropped a lot and the sun went away.
Right, there's a lot of cold air behind that front. We wait.
We wait.
We're at the mercy of the Park Service at the moment.
Later that afternoon, we received a call from LE advising that help was on the way. So we broke down our tent, loaded down the kayaks with all the gear, and waited, only to receive a call an hour later stating that conditions were too dangerous to attempt a rescue.
Seems to be getting more and more the level of type 3 fun.
Yeah, type 3 fun. Where you actually, when it's over, you actually don't want to do it again.
So there was nothing else to do but put the tent back up and settle in for another restless night. So what do you do when the Park Service is unwilling to take a risk in inclement weather to help us? You call in the cavalry, someone who isn't afraid of taking risks, and that is our friend Alex. We loaded down his 17-foot Key West with all the gear and kayaks, said goodbye to our home for the last 5 days, and set a bearing for the Canaveral National Seashore boat ramp.
Thank God for Alex. Oh, we're on land! Oh my gosh, coffee! Sausage!
Being castaways, we may have missed a day of school and a day of work, but we wouldn't trade this experience for anything. So much so that we vowed to come back next year and get another round of this Type 2 fun.